Hello, coaches and KINES 58.5 coaching sports students. We are at the final. This is our last week of the class, and this assignment is considered the final assignment, and it will count as your final. So I'm going to be emailing you guys all out individual grade reports today. And if you have questions about those or have assignments that you're missing and you'd still like to turn in, I will accept any late assignments up until this coming Friday, which is the 17th. So if you are hoping to get a good grade in this class, get those assignments turned in, and we'll get them added to your points and get your grade adjusted. So I have no problem giving everybody good grades in the class, but we got to do the work. So as we go into this week, I just want to recap a little bit about last week. I enjoyed reading your guys' scouting reports, game plans, and a lot of you are really doing a great job. And I kind of get the impression, and this is okay, that some of you are taking this class, maybe not because you're totally interested in becoming a coach, but my hope is that through the assignments and through the different readings and links that you'll have a better perspective on what that means, and that you'll be able to carry over some of the skills that maybe were outlined in this class into your personal life or professional life as you move forward. So most of you have done just an outstanding job so far. So if you're missing assignments, get them in, and let's finish strong, as we say in coaching. For those of you that taking the class that are currently coaching or are future coaches and know you want to coach, it's obvious that you guys are well on your way. You've really done a great job so far in the class, and I'm looking forward to seeing your last assignments. So that being said, let's move into our final week and our final assignment. So now that we've kind of gone through the whole cycle of what I consider the most important parts of coaching, we're going to circle all the way back to week one, when we talked about player relations, buy-in, personal relationships, and expectations, and use some of that information for this week's assignment. This week's assignment, we're going to get into recruiting. And even though some of you may be having a coaching experience where recruiting is not part of the game, this assignment, I think, is valuable in many ways. An old coach one time told me when I was a really young coach, he said, "Coach, we're always selling tickets." And the way he meant that was that every single thing you do in life is selling tickets to you and for people to buy into you. And so in terms of getting jobs, in terms of being a community member, in terms of being a part of any organization, you're always selling tickets, and so you want support, and you want in whatever endeavor that you seek out, these skills I think are valuable, and they're usable every day. And so always remember that, like, as you're going through things and you're talking to people and you're interacting with people, you're always selling tickets. And that kind of sometimes is a reminder for me, and so anyway, these skills cross over big time. And so we're going to go to recruiting now. And for this week's assignment, I'll kind of get to the assignment first and then go through what I think are kind of the important parts of that. Okay. So this week, I want you guys to seek out a college program. Okay. Any college program you want for any sport that you want. And I want you to do some research on the program and find out some facts and things that you think somebody recruiting for that program would be proud to share with a potential recruit and or recruit's parents. And so things like graduation rates for student athletes, or resources for student athletes, or we win a whole bunch of championships, and or we send the most players to the NFL, or we have your major, things like that. So this week's assignment is going to require some research on your behalf to find a college program that you're going to use as your school. So you're going to be the coach of that school, and you're going to be working on some recruiting information to reach out to potential student athletes for that program. And keep in mind, with each program, there's also a style and a team culture. And these are all the things that we've covered in our coaching class. These are important factors based on the types of players you're looking for. And so, you know, you want to have players, if your mentality is to be a really tight-knit team where the players really care about each other and you have great teammates and you have great relationships, then you're looking for those types of players. And so you know, that takes sometimes interviewing coaches that they've had, talking to them, talking to their parents, seeing kind of what's motivating them. And so you can find out a lot, but it's really important that you link all these things together that we've talked about: your style, your culture, the college you're recruiting to, the information about that college that would be most important to that student athlete. So we're going to go through a checklist of tips and reminders for recruiting, and I'll give you an outline of what I do, which is really similar. You know, I used to coach at the 4-year level, and I've pretty much followed this same process my whole coaching career. You know, I spent a lot of time with experienced coaches when I was a young coach, and you know, kind of sponged the information from them and soaked it in. And these are people, and then over the years, one great resource for me is that 4-year college coaches are constantly coming through Santa Rosa Junior College to recruit our student athletes. And I get to sit there like a fly on the wall many times during those conversations with the college coaches and our players. And so it's been really interesting for me to see the different styles and tactics that coaches use. I mean, I get to see maybe 20, 30 coaches a year that come through to recruit our players, and sit there and listen to them give their speech on their college and what they think is important and how that interacts with our players. And so I do have some insight on this, not just my own personal insight, but I've seen successful recruiters that do a great job that come in and recruit our guys, and then our players sign to those schools, and they pick those schools because of the way they were recruited and the resources and all those things. So I've also seen many coaches come in and do a terrible job recruiting our guys. And when the coaches leave, our players look at me and say, "Coach, I wouldn't want to go play for that guy." So there is some perspective and there is some insight here that I have that I think will be helpful to you guys as you start getting into this assignment. Okay, so let's talk about recruiting today. Okay, we're going to talk about some things that I think, as I mentioned, are important and go into more depth on them. So recruiting can be really tricky. You know, it's sometimes hard with only surface conversations to really understand what a recruit is looking for. A lot of times recruits and recruits' parents treat the first conversation kind of like a job interview. We want to tell you all the things that we think that you probably want to hear. You know, and so you really have to dig sometimes to get to who the person really is, and how much time you want to invest in recruiting the student athlete to represent your program. So the first step that I go through is like any other plan that you're going to start. Okay, we need to identify the resources that are in place, and we need to see kind of like, okay, this is now, okay, which is like a self-assessment. You're going to assess your needs. You're going to look at what available resources are out there, and kind of put everything on the table and say, okay, boy, we're really deficient in this area. We're really deficient in this area. We have a lot of people coming back at this area, and so on, and be able to compare those, because that's going to really guide your recruitment. At the junior college level, because it's a unique level, you lose half your team every single year, and that's pretty rare. You know, you have players that play for you for 1 year or 2 years, and so to have the same team for more than 1 year is impossible. at a junior college. Whereas in high school, you might have some seniors, but then you've got those sophomores, juniors, and the seniors coming up. At a 4-year college, you typically have people for 4 years, unless they're a JC transfer. So the JC is a little bit unique. And so you are recruiting almost for every position every single year at a junior college. So you pretty much know that every time. You might know that you have some experienced players coming back, but in order to keep the machine going, you have to have players coming up through every single position on your team. And so JC is a tough one, because you're not just recruiting athletes into your college, you're also spending many hours and days helping your players get out. And that's a little unique. So anyway, first step is to identify your needs. Okay. And then identify the resources that are available to you. And with every organization, there are guidelines, there are rules, recruiting rules, and things like that. And so one thing that I really pay close attention to is I never want to break a rule in recruiting that could come back to haunt you later. And some examples of that is that other junior colleges have broken recruiting rules and won games and then had to forfeit games. Players were ruled ineligible. Ultimately, when you break recruiting rules, the person that suffers the most is the student athlete. And that's really unfair because they're not really sure of the process, and they're relying on you as the coach to guide them in a way that is the right way to do that. So always follow the rules, but and then sometimes the reason I say that is because when you identify your resources, sometimes you'll want to tap into resources that may be outside your area of recruitment. For junior colleges, for example, we have an area that we're allowed to recruit from physically, where we can go to the school, we can talk to kids, we can invite them to our school. And then there are areas where we can only recruit by phone or email. We can't go there in person. And then there are areas where we can't even contact an athlete, they have to contact us. So for California junior colleges to be able to recruit an out-of-state student athlete, that student has to contact that college first before you're able to do that. So knowing what your resources are and understanding the rules within those resources is really important. Okay, so as you're gathering players now and you start looking, okay, here's our resources, here's the players at those different schools or programs, you're going to identify with the people that fit your personnel and your team culture. It's very hard sometimes to change the way a person is in such a short window of time. And so you really want to look for student athletes that already possess a lot of the important things that you hope to teach your team. That will save you a lot of time and a lot of frustration. And so after you are able to gather all the information, after you're able to identify your resources, after you're able to identify your needs, okay, then it's time to start connecting with student athletes. And the best way that I've found is to see them in person if at all possible. Zoom meetings, phone calls, text messages, and stuff like that. Those are good, and but there's nothing that is better than a face-to-face conversation where you can meet them, they can meet you, you can see each other, and you can hopefully get some real conversation with that meeting. But it's important to connect with your recruits and connect with them regularly. Okay, so lots of the recruits that we've had, they communicate differently. Some are texters, some are voicemail people, some are Twitter people, some are phone calls, visits. They're all maybe a little bit different. And your job as a recruiter is to figure out what communication avenue works best for the people that you're recruiting, and then really utilize those efforts. Doing some homework and getting to know your student athletes that you're recruiting and things like this will really make you more efficient. And if you're recruiting a lot of people like I am, we're recruiting probably 50, 60 players a year to join our team. And to do a good job and to be efficient, it's really important to pinpoint your efforts. And so if one recruit's never going to answer his phone, but he'll return a text, then start texting, and give them a path of least resistance, so to speak, as you figure out what is their best form of communication. Um, as you guys are recruiting, it is sometimes it's really tempting to compare your program to other programs. You may be really proud about your program. And so in these connections, while you start talking about your program, one of the tips that was given to me a long time ago by a coach was never talk bad about another program. Figure out what the differences are, and in a way that is only going to talk good about your program, then you can explain those differences. But as you make that connection with those student athletes, you want to be a first class person, stand up person that you know, doesn't need to stoop to those levels. And that's really common. I hate to say it. It's common. We'll hear things from other recruits that we're recruiting, and we're recruiting against another junior college, and the recruit will say, well, this coach told me this. And sometimes they're not even things that are true. And so take the high road on all of that stuff, and don't get caught up into those types of recruiting wars with other programs. I think it can be really detrimental and create a culture that maybe you don't want to have. So positive communication, always positive about your opponents. Oh, that's a great program. You know, they've won a lot of games. Here's how we're different, you know, and so it's up to you as the recruit to determine what's most important to you, and then figure out which one of these situations is the best fit for you, you know. And you know, at Santa Rosa, we talk a lot about, you know, the culture of our team, and the experience of our players, the success of our players as they move on. You know, it's not about, oh, we crush those guys every year and that's a terrible program, don't go there. Because you never know what might motivate somebody. And so talk good about your program, and find the points where you can sell tickets to your program. Focus on what is unique about your college. Okay, as we mentioned in the interview portion of this class, you know, we talked about the first interview question that usually pops up in every interview, at least all the ones that I've been on, which is a lot. And the first question is, tell us why you're the best candidate for this job. Okay, this is a similar question. Okay, so if you look at what makes a candidate the best candidate for the job, okay, let's assume you have 5 people applying for a job. Before they get interviewed, they've already been checked to see if they have the qualifications for the job. The interview is to figure out what makes them different, what makes them unique, what makes them the best person for that job. And so when you're recruiting a student athlete, I think you use that same formula. You know, you want to talk about what's unique about your program. Okay, you could say, like, you know, for example, in a junior college, the cost is the same at every California junior college. Every, you know, good sized junior college does a great job of transferring their players on. So, you know, the schools we're recruiting against, all their players sign scholarships, just like all of our players sign scholarships. So you shouldn't spend a lot of time saying, if you come here, you're gonna get this or you're gonna get that. What I like to say is, if you go to any of these schools, these things are gonna all be the same. But here's what makes us different. And you need to decide if that's something that's important to you, because we're unique in that area. For example, Santa Rosa Junior College has the Doyle Scholarship. No other California junior college has a Doyle Scholarship, and that's a guaranteed $1,200 to any high school student that comes to our school. And when you talk about the cost of junior colleges a little bit, you're pretty much making money to come to Santa Rosa Junior College. We're going to pay you to come here. So that's something that's unique. And so we spend a lot of time talking about that. I think the culture of our team is unique. We spend a lot of time talking about that with recruits. I think one thing that I'm super proud of is that I have 14 ex-players on my coaching staff that went off to college, got degrees, developed careers, and they are now with us. And they came back because of their experience, which speaks to the culture of the program. You know, we talk a lot about family, and that, so when you talk about, okay, we've got this group of people that are mentors for young people that have literally walked in their shoes at Santa Rosa Junior College and then went on to do great things in life and in college and in football. To me, that's unique. You know, if you look at other junior colleges staffs, they're not all ex-players from that school that played for that coach. I'm blessed to have that scenario here, and that helps so much to help develop the culture we're looking for. And we brag about that quite a bit in recruiting. Um, and then as you're recruiting, you could spout off about your program for hours if you're proud about it, like I am. I get with recruits and I could just keep talking. And so I have to tell myself, make sure you let them talk, and force them to talk, ask them questions, interact. Don't just speak at them. Let's have a conversation, and let's find out, just like we did with what's the best way they communicate. Let's find out what the most important thing is in regards to them making a decision about your program. Okay, things like, hey, what are the top 3 things on your list that are going to help determine your decision? And they're going to be slightly different for recruit to recruit, but there'll probably be about 5 things that will be the themes. And so you want to really spotlight those areas so that those student athletes feel like the most important thing on their list is you have that, and you do a good job at that. I think that's really important to establish what those things are, and then again pinpoint your efforts to those. If you spend an hour talking about the quality of your academics, like we could at Santa Rosa Junior College, we're the top 3 junior college academically in the United States. We have, our students transfer, their GPAs are this, their GPAs are that, and you go off about that for 20 minutes, which is easy to do. And the only thing that this recruit wants to or that matters to this recruit is how many guys at his position are returning. And there you've wasted 20 minutes and maybe bored this recruit to death talking about things that maybe they didn't want to hear. Now, that's a really important thing to talk about, is the success of your students academically. I mean, and that's the whole reason they're there. They may not realize it yet, but the academics is. So you always want to mention, what's important, what should be important to them. Okay, but always know what is the most important thing to them at that time in their life. Sometimes we look at things and say, this should be the most important thing to you. But for an 18-year-old student athlete, it really might be what we think is the most important thing. And we might know it's the most important thing. Okay, but that young student athlete does not have the life experience or the perspective to fully understand how important that thing is. So again, you really pinpoint your efforts for efficiency. And when you're talking with recruits, my experience has been be to the point, and don't talk too long. Get them talking, and have a conversation. Okay. In regards to that conversation, be personable, be on time. We have recruiters that good and bad. Some call ahead, they make an appointment with me. They reach out to our student athletes. They say, hey, Johnny, I'm going to be at the football office at 11 o'clock on the 17th of this month. And I'd love to be able to sit down and talk to you about the opportunities of our college. And so I know I can help set up the facility for the coach to meet with those players. The players come in at that time. Everybody's on time. It's a first-class operation from start to finish. And then we have coaches that show up unannounced and have not talked to any players, and they show up and they say, who do you have? What good players do you have? And I'll say, well, what are you recruiting? And they'll say, well, we're just looking for good players. Okay, that's a challenge. That's somebody that really hasn't done their homework. But whatever the case may be, you have the opportunity to set those appointments up. You have the opportunity to get that scenario set up. When you walk into that room to talk to those recruits, you want to have a culture in that room where you're organized, you're on time, you're personable. And as you have those conversations, you want to talk about, just like the buy-in that you try to achieve with your team, the buy-in lessons that we learned early in the semester are the same things that you're trying to show this recruit. How are you going to support the student athlete? What are the opportunities for that student athlete? What is the plan for that student athlete personally? What is the academic plan? Okay, where are you as a student? Well, I'm barely graduating from high school. Okay, well, your path is probably going to be something like this, and let's talk about that. And we're going to help you every step of the way through that and get you caught up and up to the college level so that at the end of the day, you can transfer and sign a scholarship and move on and get a college degree. And so how do they fit into that plan and what resources are in there? And what I think people want to hear is that you have a plan for them. You have expectations for them. You have opportunities for them, and you have support and a culture that will allow that to happen, that will allow growth. Okay. And so those conversations are really important. You're really trying to get to know that student. But most importantly, you're trying to get that student athlete to know you and believe in you and believe in your program. And when you show up late or you're unprepared or you ramble on about things that maybe not important to a student athlete, they check out, and you've lost an opportunity to make a great first impression, and maybe lost an opportunity to get that recruit. Okay. As we go through these tips and reminders, I'm also going to be including a lot of this in the handout that I send out to you. Hopefully you can just listen and absorb the stuff, and then you'll get this stuff back in an outline form in the email. So the next point in the recruitment process, you've gotten your information and identified your needs. You're starting to reach out to players. You're having meetings with players. You're developing relationships with players, and then you want those players to be able to access information accurately and quickly about your program if they have further questions or things they want to see. And so social media is my next tip and reminder here. This can be a huge resource for you to connect with student athletes that maybe you haven't talked to, that are just following you on Twitter, following your program on Twitter, following you on Facebook, or whatever the media modality is. That can be a massive resource where you can reach a lot of people and get your information in front of people's eyes. Now, that can be good, and that can also be bad. Just like any social media, if there's negative things on there, then that's going to affect, in an adverse way, and your program in an adverse way. Remember, we're always selling tickets. Okay. So your social media should be positive. It should be positive things about your program, positive things about yourself, and um, the things related to your program. You want to make sure that information is up to date. You don't want to have the 2017 schedule up there when it's 2022. Okay, people are going to want to come to see the games. They're going to want to know who you're playing. They're going to want to know updates on the last game. They're going to want to know who's signing scholarships. So you need to promote, you need to use social media, I think, to promote your program, even at the lowest levels of sports. Okay, I see websites for youth programs where, you could, if you're talking to a parent, for example, and they say, well, where can I find more information about your program? Oh, go to our website, and you have a whole thing there that outlines your program. We have our campus website, we have an athletics page, we have a football page, but all of our coaches are on Twitter, all of our coaches are on Facebook, and we use social media quite a bit in the recruitment of our student athletes, both coming in and going out. And so social media is huge, but I would say the warnings for social media: make sure you're updating that information and that it's accurate. Make sure you have more than one set of eyes on it, and you don't want to have typos or misprinted information in there. That's going to be really, really important. And so social media is huge when used the right way. Okay. As I mentioned, have a plan for each coach, and through that social media, when your recruits do commit, we want to celebrate that. Okay, you're trying to make them feel special. And so when a student athlete commits to us, well, we blow it up on social media. Hey, such and such committed, we're excited to coach you. And that's important, because that student athlete wants to feel like they have a home, and that college wants them. It's competitive out there, and so you need to use every modality that you have in the recruitment and the promotion of your student athletes and your program. A couple last tips and reminders for dealing with recruits. Be very careful about guarantees. Okay. And only guarantee the things that are actually a guarantee. Some recruits in years past have said, coach, this coach at this other college guaranteed that I will be the starter. And that's really, you could say there's a good chance you could be the starter, or you're going to have an opportunity to be the starter, but to just guarantee somebody the starter, two things happen there. You create an expectation that this person doesn't even have to work for the position and earn the position, which is going to make the position important to them and make them take pride in being the starter at that position. But you also have somebody that's probably playing that position right now that by default thinks they're going to be the starter for that next year. And to just go out and tell somebody, so you've had this student athlete that's sacrificed a whole year for you, or 2 years or 3 years, and they're coming into their year where they think they're the starter, and maybe they're not a great player, but they're there. And in their mind, they're the starter. And in their mind, they've earned that. They've paid their dues. And to just go out and tell somebody that plays their position that you're going to be the starter no matter what, or things like that, things that you can't guarantee. Just be careful on that. I think, one thing that we talk about a lot is that we guarantee you're going to have an opportunity to be the best player at your position. And then we're going to provide you with a vehicle that can take you anywhere you want to go. But it's up for you to make that vehicle go. And the vehicle goes by your efforts and your attitude and your sacrifices to your development and to the development of our program. And so that's an opportunity that you can say is 100% true. And at the end of the day, we're looking for the best players, and the best players that do everything we ask them to do are the ones that are going to get the most opportunities to play on game day. And so I think that's really important. Guarantees from coaches, even though you might have the greatest player you've ever recruited, and he's 100 times better than anybody else you have, I think you set the stage for maybe some trouble later on when you throw guarantees out, because anything could happen. That player could come in and just be playing terrible, and then at some point they can always come back to you and say, well, you guaranteed me that I was going to be the starter and I'm not playing now and I want to transfer, or that's not right. And it's not right. So the way you avoid those situations is by not giving those guarantees at all. And then you have the opportunity to come back and say, well, the guarantee was that you're going to have an opportunity to be the guy. And right now you're not the best player at your position because you're lacking in these areas, and we need to get you caught up. You could be the best guy, but right now you're not. And so, that I think is a better way to go about that and avoid these scenarios altogether. As you go in and you talk to players, be yourself. Okay. Have confidence in yourself. Make sure these are simple ones, but I would feel irresponsible if I didn't mention them. Look people in the eye. When you shake hands, give them a firm handshake. Have confidence when you come in the room. Remember, this is a job interview. Every recruit that you talk to is like going into a job interview. Okay. And so when you think about the skills going into a job interview, you want to be confident. You want them to believe that you're the best person, not just a person, not just a qualified person, but you want them to walk away saying that is the best person for the job. Or this is not just a viable college that I could go to, but this is the best college for me to go to. Okay. So you need to have some swagger when you need to come in and you need to look the part. Okay. But that being said, don't be somebody that you're not. Okay. You can be soft-spoken and still accomplish all the same things. You can be a loud, boisterous person and accomplish the same things. But be yourself, and make sure that when you walk in there, nobody, wants to. It's pretty easy to see when somebody's being phony about who they are. And no matter how old you are, you can see through that pretty quickly. Okay. So be yourself, and go through the steps. take the time to get to know your recruits. If I could say there's one thing that's most important about, really getting a commit to recruit, it's make that recruitment as personal as possible to that individual recruit. Okay. And again, which means that you need to get them to buy into you. Okay. And you need to develop a relationship with them. And all these other things that I mentioned, those are tips and reminders that kind of go along with that. Okay. But they're all things that you would do in a positive relationship. Okay. If it was just a friend of yours that you were trying to help out and you had this great opportunity for them, you would probably approach that the same way. Okay. So be true to yourself, have confidence, and work hard. That's the one thing too. Everything in coaching and everything in life, you're better at it if you work hard at it. That's just a real simple life skill. So work hard at it. So this week's assignment, I want you to write up your plan to get the best players for your team. As I mentioned, I want you to research a college, and you're going to assume that you're recruiting for that college. Okay. And so you're going to write up a plan that you think is the best plan to recruit players to that college. What's going to make them want to come play for you at that school? Okay. And you can go through the items that we talked about in this video, that you'll have in your handout this week, or your email this week. And so go through and I think it starts by, just like the process, to bullet point it, determine your needs, determine the resources, reach out to those resources, get to know those resources, get a commitment from those student athletes, and on down the line. Okay. And so I want to see like an outline of your recruiting plan, and how you're going to identify recruits, how you're going to evaluate those recruits. Okay. How do you know if they're the right program for what you're trying to do schematically or for your culture? Okay. You need to evaluate them. How you're going to provide consistent contact with your student athletes, and then how are you going to finally close the deal and get a commitment? The second part of your assignment is to take that outline of, this is our colleges, I'm the head coach, this is my recruiting process in bullet points. Okay, I'm going to do these things, and I'm going to do these things underneath those things to support them. The second part of that is I want you to write a contact letter, a first contact letter to a potential recruit. Okay, and so this letter could start out something like, hello, John, my name is Lenny Wagner. I'm the head football coach at Santa Rosa Junior College. I'm reaching out today to you because we are very interested in you as a student athlete for our college and football program. And then go into who you are, the general information about your college, why your college. Here it comes up again, not just why you're an option. Okay. Why are you the best college for that recruit? Okay. Specific information pertaining to that recruit. And sometimes you kind of have to be broad with that first letter, but as you start getting to know that recruit, any information or correspondence that happens between the two of you can be way more pinpointed and way more accurate as you go. Okay. And that is that process of getting to know your student athletes. Okay. By the time your student athletes come to play for you, you're hoping that they're totally bought in and they're excited for the opportunity that you're going to provide for them. I have included a couple of links to help you guys with those two things of the assignment. So there's two parts to the assignment. One is write up your overall big picture recruitment plan. And then the second part is to write a letter to a first contact letter to a recruit that you would like to have participate in your program. There's two links. Both of them I think you'll find very helpful. I think you should look at those before you attempt to do the assignment. And hopefully you've watched this video before you attempt to do the assignment. I think it makes it a lot clearer, and it allows you to pinpoint your efforts, just like we're talking about in this. So again, I want to remind you guys that I will take late assignments up until this Friday. And also reiterate that it's been a pleasure getting to know you through your assignments and through this class. I wish you guys the best of luck, and I'm always here as a resource. for coaching advice, college advice, whatever kind of advice. I'm easy to find. So, and I'm not going anywhere. So reach out if you need to. Otherwise, this may be the final sign off for a lot of us for this class this semester. I am teaching a sociology of sport class, kinesiology 5 next semester. If any of you are interested, I'd love to see you in there. It's a great class. And we had a section on sociology of sport and the importance of sport. And the feedback from you guys, it seemed pretty positive that you enjoyed that 1 week of the class. The sociology of sport class is a whole semester of learning about heroes in our past that through sports made significant change or helped change in our society and in the society of the world. So if you're into that and you enjoyed that section of the class, then again, we'd love to see you there. But other than that, I'm going to be sending your grade reports out along with this Zoom link. And if you have questions or I made a mistake, that happens. If I made a mistake on some of your assignments and I missed them or something like that, just let me know and resend them to me, and we'll get everything right. So best of luck to all of you and happy holidays. I hope you guys have just a great spring, or winter break, and look forward to seeing you guys all back in classes at the college in the spring semester. Have a great day. Bye-bye.